Apple released a new 9.7-inch version of the iPad Pro. It's an effort to reinvigorate tablet sales while offering additional features not ever seen on a tablet before. But is it worth your money? In this episode, I explain why this is one of the best tablets you can buy. Let's peel the iPad Pro. Hey guys, welcome to Bleeding Edge TV. I'm Andrew Edwards. This is the show that brings you news and reviews through the eyes of GearLive.com. And today, I've got the new iPad Pro 9.7-inch model right here. We're going to be doing a deep dive on the new iPad Pro. Grab some popcorn, grab yourself a drink, and I'm going to tell you all about this model right here. It's mid-sized, it's the mid-tier, but it may just be the new flagship once again. And I'm actually going to want you guys to help me out with this review, and you can do that over on productpeel.com, which will allow you to join in with me and incorporate your thoughts and opinions on this device as well. You can find out more at productpeel.com. The site is invite only right now, but I do have a bunch of invite codes, so hit the link below and I'll get you in. So any questions you might have for me about the device after watching the review, or any questions you might be able to answer about the iPad Pro, again, join me over on productpeel.com. All right, now let's jump into the review, starting with the hardware. Apple unveiled the iPad Pro at a recent event where it also released the iPhone SE. Both devices actually have similar philosophies. They take the power found in the larger form factor and shrink it down to fit into a more manageable size for portability. In other words, the 9.7-inch iPad Pro takes the A9X chipset found in the larger model and brings it to the smaller form factor, which makes the 9.7-inch iPad Pro almost as fast as its larger counterpart and much faster than the iPad Air 2. The 64-bit A9X chip is so powerful that it allows the iPad to do tasks that previously only PCs could do, yet remain super efficient doing its job without draining your battery. If you're using just one app at a time in order to check and send email, iMessages, Twitter, and Facebook updates, and even things like photo editing, you're going to feel the speed and not see any hiccups. In fact, even when multitasking with the slide over pane or running two apps side by side in split screen, the iPad never faltered and the speed felt great. So what about more intense apps? Games like Warhammer 40,000 and AG Drive did their thing without a hiccup, and I even rendered a small 4K clip as well using iMovie, which processed faster than any other 9.7-inch iPad that Apple's ever released. It's such a big difference in power that it's just plain noticeable. You can get things done faster and more efficiently and with less frustration. Okay, so with all that performance power, you're probably wondering, what's up with the battery though? Apple has always prided itself on saying that every iPad it's ever released gets a minimum of 10 hours of battery life. The iPad Air 2, iPad Mini 4, and the iPad Pro 12.9-inch each beat this mark, and actually the iPad Mini 4 obliterates it. Unfortunately, with the 9.7-inch iPad Pro, I was only able to get 9 hours and 30 minutes out of the battery with my testing method, which is basically playing HD videos non-stop back-to-back with the screen set to 50% brightness. Now don't get me wrong, that's still a lot of screen on time, and personally it isn't a big deal to me, but it's still something that should be noted. Luckily, not everyone uses their iPad for hours-long Netflix sessions, and when using it normally for things like email, YouTube, music streaming, gaming, and all that, the iPad Pro would last me 3 or 4 days before needing to be charged again. You also get the 4-speaker configuration found in its larger sibling, rather than the 2-speaker setup found on previous models in the 9.7-inch size. As far as sound quality goes, the iPad Pro is pretty good. Actually, it's great. It's got 4 speakers, one in each corner of the device. And the way that they work is, no matter which way you're holding the iPad, so if you're holding it this way, the tops are going to be your highs, and then the bottoms are going to be your lows. And then if you switch orientations like this, these 2 speakers become your highs, and the bottom 2, once again, become your low frequencies. So it switches on the fly depending on how you're holding the iPad to optimize the sound for the best listening experience for the way you're holding the device. And the volume is also great as well. Previous iPads have been pretty bad at sound volume, all the way from the original iPad, the iPad 2, 3, 4, even the Air and Air 2. The sound was okay on the Air and Air 2, but it doesn't compare to this 4-speaker setup. It's really nice, and the sound can really get nice and loud. You also get that thin form factor, measuring in at 6.1 millimeters and weighing 0.96 pounds. What you don't get is the 4 gigabytes of RAM found on the original iPad Pro. With the 9.7-inch model, you get 2 gigabytes, which is the same as what you'll get if you pick up an iPad Air 2. In my findings though, the difference is very negligible for most users. In some ways, the smaller, newer iPad Pro is more impressive than the larger model. So let's peel into those differences. For starters, it has the 12 megapixel rear camera with f2.2 lens that you'll find on the iPhone 6s. It's the first time that the current year iPad has the same camera as that year's iPhone. So what you have here is a 12 megapixel iSight camera that can capture 4K video. It also does 240 frame per second slow-mo videos and can capture live photos as well. It's also the first iPad to sport a flash, and it's a two-tone flash brought over from the iPhone 6s that matches the lighting environment and skin tones in your picture. The iPad Pro sports a 5 megapixel FaceTime HD camera with Retina flash with True Tone. That just means it uses the screen itself to act as a flash, and the True Tone portion of that means it will use just the right color of light to match your environment to keep things looking natural. Again, these are the best cameras to ever ship on an iPad. They'll capture videos and photos at just as high a quality as the newest iPhones, and that means Apple's going all in on tablet photography. As with Apple's flagship smartphone, you'll get the antenna bump on back. But seriously, it isn't a big deal at all. The plastic LTE band that's been a mainstay since the original iPad is gone on the smaller Pro, replaced by iPhone-like antenna bands. As far as the rest of the device from a hardware perspective, you get the power button up top, the 3-pin smart connector on the left for accessories, and a 27.5 watt-hour battery on the inside. There's a lot of power here, and as such you can expect to pay a premium. The iPad Pro starts at $599, and that gets you 32 gigabytes of storage and Wi-Fi connectivity. There are also 128 gigabyte and 256 gigabyte models as well, which cost an extra $150 and $300 respectively. Add cellular capabilities and you add another $130 to the price. The ones I'm testing in this video are a feature-packed rose gold LTE model with 256 gigabytes of storage, which retails for $1,029, as well as a space gray 128 gigabyte LTE model, which sells for $879. Big shout out to AT&T here in Seattle for sending over the space gray unit that we're using for comparison. As you can see, you get two choices of color for the front of the device. If you choose gold, rose gold, or silver, you get a white bezel on front. If you want the black bezel instead, you have to opt for the space gray color. On front, you've got your 9.7-inch Retina display, of course, staple of the iPad since the very beginning. The display on the iPad Pro is amazing. I'll peel into this further in order to explain why I love this screen so much. It's a 9.7-inch LED Retina display with a 2048 by 1536 resolution, matching the resolution of all the previous 9.7-inch iPads with Retina displays. That's down from the 2732 by 2048 resolution of the larger iPad Pro, but it's the same pixel density. What's changed is that you now get support for the P3 color gamut, which is a standard that can show 25% greater color saturation and is used widely in the cinema industry. It's the same spec that can be found on the newest 4K and 5K iMac displays. The display is also brighter by about 100 nits, which makes it better when in direct sunlight. And speaking of which, Apple says they've also made the screen 40% less reflective, which is another nice touch for anyone who likes to use their iPad outdoors. Now, the best new feature about the iPad Pro 9.7-inch tablet's display is True Tone. Let me tell you what that is. What this does is use the 4 ambient light sensors that are embedded into the front of the iPad, which allows it to recognize the color temperature of the light in the room or environment that you're in. Then, the display will match that color temperature in order to make it look more natural. The idea here is that if you take a white piece of paper into a room with more yellowish light, that white piece of paper will take on a more yellow hue. If you take that same exact piece of paper into another room with bright fluorescent lighting, it'll take on a more bluish tone. Of course, you can toggle this off if you're doing work that requires accurate color representation like image editing or color grading. For all other times though, it's a nice feature to have, and it does make a genuine difference as it pertains to eye strain. Alright, now let's peel into the accessories that make the iPad Pro an iPad Pro. Apple products have a huge accessory ecosystem, especially iOS devices, so instead we're focusing specifically on the 2 Pro accessories that Apple makes for the iPad Pro line, those being the Apple Pencil and the Smart Keyboard. So let's start with the Pencil. The Apple Pencil works just as nicely on the 9.7-inch iPad Pro as it does on the 12.9-inch model. In fact, for someone like me, who isn't an artist by any stretch of the imagination, I find the Apple Pencil works better for me with the smaller iPad Pro tablet because because it feels closer to a piece of paper and less like a canvas. It's almost like carrying around a clipboard. Now, if that's you, if you're also not an artist, then you may find the same experience. If you are an artist who loves to draw and wants as much space as possible to do it, then the larger device might be more your style. The Apple Pencil sells for 99 bucks. Then there's a smart keyboard. Since the iPad itself is smaller, Apple released a smaller smart keyboard for the iPad Pro 9.7-inch model, which makes sense. However, this means that the keys and overall space on the keyboard are smaller, making it more cramped to type on. This was actually my biggest fear out of everything on the 9.7-inch model, because I love the smart keyboard experience on the larger model and I didn't want something that would be uncomfortable to type on. Luckily, it just took a minute or two before I was flying on the smaller keyboard. From a mechanical perspective, the devices are the same. They connect to the iPad Pro by way of the smart connector on the left side of the device, which feeds power to the keyboard. In fact, to prove that they're exactly the same, and I mean the two different size keyboards, I was able to use the smaller keyboard with the larger iPad Pro and the larger keyboard with the smaller iPad Pro with no problems. Of course, it did look pretty ridiculous, but hey, it's an iPad hack. If you want a fuller keyboard but the smaller iPad Pro, just buy the more expensive and larger keyboard. And alternatively, if you have a larger iPad Pro and want to save some money on the keyboard, just buy the smaller model. The smart keyboard sells for $149 for the smaller iPad Pro and $179 for the larger model. And there you have it, guys. We've peeled through the new 9.7-inch iPad Pro, taking a deep dive look at the hardware, how it fits into my everyday life based on my usage patterns. I'd love to hear about your thoughts on Apple's flagship tablet as well, and you can do that over on Product Peel. I'll leave that link in the description below. Again, it's an invite-only site currently, but I've got invite codes to get you guys in so you can share your perspectives as well. Of course, feel free to ask me anything, any questions, clarifying my thoughts on the iPad Pro over on Product Peel as well. My final verdict though, if you're in the market for a new tablet, it's hard to go wrong with choosing the iPad Pro 9.7-inch if you don't need anything bigger. Forget about the Pro moniker, don't let that confuse you. Just enjoy it for what it is, the best tablet that Apple has ever made. You can pick up the iPad Pro 9.7-inch model starting at $599 for the 32GB version, $749 for the 128GB model, and $899 for 256GB if you just want the Wi-Fi versions. If you want cellular as well, those are $729 for 32GB, $879 for 128GB, and $1,029 for 256GB. Be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed this deeper dive style video, and maybe we'll start peeling more devices for you guys in the future to really give you a strong sense of their actual capabilities and how they fit into everyday life. If you're new here or you just haven't done it yet, feel free to hit the subscribe button up there in order to be notified when we release new reviews, unboxings, tutorials, peels, and the like. It's free and it helps us out more than you know. Thanks a lot for watching. As always, guys, your support means a lot to me. I'm Andru Edwards, and I'll catch you in the next video.